I would like to call to order the Monday, February 17th meeting of the City of Monona City Council. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder DePula.
Here.
Alder Holmquist.
Here.
Alder Moore.
Here.
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder Rademacher. Here. Alder Bernstein.
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, we have no minutes this evening. I don't think we have any appearances.
None
Is there
registered,
something I
Mayor.
haven't heard of?
Nope.
No public hearing. 2 items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I would like to pull one of the items about LED streetlight conversion project.
Do we need a motion for that, Neil? Or?
I don't believe so. I think just the request is all it needs.
Okay. Then we will just consider the second item on the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. I guess going back to the first item then, consideration of Resolution 25-2-2776, approving an agreement for installation services for the Monona LED streetlight conversions project put forth by the Public Works Committee. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve. Second.
I thought it became new business if it came off the consent agenda.
Does it, even though we've already discussed it last time? Didn't we? We discussed this last time, didn't
We
we?
discussed it at
We
finance.
we'll discuss the finance tonight, and this was also just the first,
Oh, I thought it was.
we had materials previously, not the.
At the council agenda?
Yeah, I think at the council agenda, yeah.
So it is new
So-
business?
I think it could probably go either place, Mayor, in terms of, because it's already identified on that location, because it's been pulled. I think it's the body's desire, whichever one you'd like to do.
I'll move approval if somebody else didn't already do it then.
Second.
Okay. Brad, I guess, did you have specific questions, Rick, or?
Yes.
Okay,
All right. I'm sorry if I'm the only one out of line here, but I just don't understand the funding for this project. There's federal funding, there's MG&E funding, and I just don't understand how it's all calculated together.
The MG&E funding,
For the streetlights, they're involved in the project too?
We're paying.
we're paying them,
We're paying them.
yes.
Okay. So is there federal funding? Is the 150,000 included the federal funding, or is that separate?
It's separate. So the 150,000 is our capital funding that we approved in fall of 2024 for
Okay.
the project. $80,000 worth is reimbursable
From the Fed?
from the feds, yep,
Right.
as part of the carbon reduction program.
Okay.
Only a certain amount of that is actually going to be used to reimburse the city because we have an 80-20 cost share, and we're only spending 58,000 of eligible funds.
Okay. And then the debit for 70,000, that's our cost above that.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
to
So there's no
install the
other,
lights,
To
right?
install the lights, to
Yeah.
do the labor,
just the labor.
just the labor.
So the actual bulbs, there's a separate item.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's not shown here.
No, that is shown. It should be in there. It's about 58,000-ish.
I'm looking at the description, streetlight conversion,
I'm seeing the 70,000.
70,000 for the debit.
That's because this line item that we're approving is only for the installation
Labor.
services.
Oh, okay, it's not in the
We already approved the
documentation.
bid in December for the materials. We
Gotcha.
had purchased those already.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder DePula.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist. Alder Moore.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Rademacher. Alder Bernstein.
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Moving on, item to council action items, unfinished business, item 1A, consideration of ordinance 2-25-789, authorizing the community service officer to issue citations put forth by the city administrator. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Neil?
Just very briefly, the intent behind this ordinance amendment is to essentially authorize the community service officer to be able to issue parking citations, particularly is of our primary interest at this point. We are certainly investigating the feasibility of perhaps expanding that role to other areas, but at this point, the primary area where we need the assistance is on parking enforcement. So I think that is kind of what has been done at this point, and I think we've got, if anyone has any more specific questions on that, certainly be happy to take any questions.
Just a brief comment that Neil and I and city attorney went, exchange emails on this, last week, I guess. And the long and short of it is basically the job description that this position has will define what ordinances they would be able to enforce. So right now, the job description is limited to the parking and the abandoned vehicle stuff.
Correct. Well, 4 sections, I believe, 4 chapters, I believe, of the ordinance.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next item, 1B, consideration of ordinance 2-25-787, establishing bus stop no parking zones at Metro Transit bus stop locations in Monona. Excuse me, put forth by the Public Works Director. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Dan?
Thank you, Mayor. I did take this item to the Public Works Committee, and they did recommend approval of the no parking locations, but with the added language to the ordinance to allow parking on Saturdays and Sundays, on weekends at these locations. I guess I have some concern with that, but it's up to City Council to decide if they want to include that in the ordinance document that was drafted. My concerns with that are that come Monday morning at 7 o'clock when Route 38 starts up again, that there might be vehicles parked in those no parking zones.
Right.
My example of that would be on Cops Avenue and on Nichols. There's a semi-truck that is currently parks there on weekends, and it parks where our identified no parking zone would be. And then on Nichols, there is a private business, large truck and trailer that also parks in the no parking zone. So my concern is if we allow parking on weekends that drifts into Monday morning by 7 a.m., those vehicles are not gone. So what happens when the Metro bus comes by and there's vehicles parked in the no parking zones? So I guess I just want you to think about that. The current Monona Transit service that we have does not run on weekends, but those stops are identified as no parking as well, so we currently have that in place. There is adequate street parking outside of these listed no parking areas, whether it's north and south of these no parking areas or east and west of it. There's adequate parking in all of these locations. So I guess with that, that's what Public Works Committee came back with as far as a recommended change to this ordinance by allowing parking on Saturdays and Sundays. So
Right now, the ordinance does not reflect that, though, is that
this
correct?
draft document does not reflect that.
Thoughts, anyone? Neil?
Mr. Mayor, I certainly agree with Director Stefani's issue, and I don't know if, Chief, you have any concerns on this as well. I think from a consistency and enforcement standpoint, it does kind of set up an almost guaranteed conflict on a couple of those locations, particularly on Monday mornings. I think it's just for the ease of, I think the key, when Director first approached me on this and talked to me about it, my first question was going to be, is there alternative other parking options available? And according to their research, that there is other parking available, so just not at these locations. So I would agree with the director's recommendation. I think it would be from an enforcement standpoint, I think it's just a little cleaner and less likely to create problems for residents if it's a continuous no parking area.
Patrick?
Yeah, I would rather have it be maintained as no parking, especially if we eventually expand bus service on the weekends. You know, then it's just something else that we don't have to like retrain folks to pay attention to.
Right. I guess what we don't know, though, is what does happen if Metro buses come by and there is a vehicle parked in there? Do they skip the stop altogether? Because then they'd be forced to stop somewhere else that's not identified as a authorized stop. So I don't know that answer.
Nancy, do you have any idea?
Don't have an answer to that. I don't believe that they skip the stop. I think that they work around the vehicle.
Well, I guess it's probably maybe some reporting of the vehicle being at the location and expect some enforcement on that at that time. So probably not just a cite, but probably a tow. I would be my guess on that, so.
Right.
Brian?
Although I understand this is an enforcement issue, I understand where the Public Works Committee is coming from, in the sense of, if we don't have a reason to restrict the parking, why are we restricting the parking? If we change bus service in the future, we can come back and we can adjust the signage as appropriate. You know, for example, there's other locations in the city that we have either a calendar, most of them are calendar yeared. I don't think we have any timed location.
There are a few, I believe, northbound Gordon has daytime restrictions during the week.
And so most of the restrictions that we've put in place are because there's a need during that time or that season. And so I appreciate why they came up with that recommendation. I agree with that recommendation on the philosophy of you shouldn't restrict parking unless there's a need for it. And right now, there's not a need for it, although I'm not sure all of my colleagues would agree, but that's fine.
My only thought, and I'm not really sure how to frame the question, but, I mean, just before this discussion, we approved the ability for an officer to write parking tickets. So it just seems that there's a funny little overlap here happening. Are there any thoughts in the room about these two subjects sort of
Well,
meshing
officers
together?
can already write them. This is just someone who's not an actual police officer can write them. Police officers could already write them
Right, so we
anyway,
have
I guess.
we have more ability to write tickets, I guess, is the
Can I-
thought.
Neil?
I don't know, yeah.
And just a reminder, Alder, that we already have existing parking issues within the city
Okay.
that we are unable to get to, that this person will be tasked with probably
Okay.
almost immediately to go respond to. Certainly, this could be potentially be an additional
Yeah.
problem at some point. But again, yeah, so again, will certainly not solve all of our parking challenges within the city. But I think it will certainly have the ability to make a significant impact
Yeah.
on areas certainly near the high school,
Yeah.
some other areas where we had to have known challenges here in the recent weeks and months, so.
Anybody else? Nancy?
Yeah, I would just point out that at least, four of the 8 locations listed are areas where don't believe that we have a sidewalk. And there's already resident concerns, about safety in the absence of a sidewalk. And so, just thinking perception-wise, that if the bus is having to
Yeah,
go around parked
create a
cars
safety
because they're
issue.
parking,
Yeah.
you know, or, it just seems that it potentially adds to a bit of a cluster, if you will.
Yeah.
Chief, did you have something to?
On that point and the earlier points that were made, this is going to be seen as potentially a public safety issue.
Right,
So we will be towing the vehicles.
right.
Yeah. All right.
Doug?
But really, the issue wouldn't be so much, can we write a ticket or even tow them? It's that they're in the way when people are trying to get
Yeah.
on the bus.
That's right.
Right.
Monday
That's
morning.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I guess my thought would be, especially given Dan's thoughts on it, is that we pass it the way it is, and if there's problems later that, the residents, neighbors make a persuasive case that it's a problem, then we could, allow parking on the weekends, but to me, it's just, you're training people that they can park somewhere, and then they're gonna think, that's just someplace they can park, and it's, yeah.
Anyone else? Do we have a motion on this, Leo?
Yes.
Did you say no or yes?
Yes, we do.
Well, if no one else has anything, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, C, consideration of resolution number 25-2-2773, approving an agreement for professional engineering services for well 4 design put forth by the Public Works Committee. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Dan?
Thank you, Mayor. This item did go before the Public Works Committee as well on the February meeting, and there were no other recommended changes for this. They did recommend approval for the engineering services for well 4.
Anyone have any questions for Dan, or? Okay, and I don't know if I can't, let me scroll down to. I'm not sure if we need a roll call on this or not. Trying to find the page that says the amount here.
148.
148, okay,
I
then
don't
we
think so,
do.
Mayor, yep.
Would the clerk please, if there are no questions, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Holmquist,
Aye.
Alder Moore,
Aye.
Alder Wood,
Aye?
Alder Rademacher,
Aye.
Alder Bernstein,
Aye.
Alder DePula.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Moving on to item 1D, consideration of ordinance 2-25-788, amending Chapter 216 of the Monona Code of Ordinances regarding erosion and stormwater control, also put forth by the Public Works Committee. Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
Brad?
All right, so this was presented at the February 2nd or 3rd meeting, presented to Public Works on the 5th. They had some feedback as to revise the definition, the label on the definition for pervious pavement to permeable, and from pervious surface to permeable surface to more align with existing definitions in the DNR and the county. There's slight differences between what is defined as pervious versus what is permeable. So outside of that, there were no other revisions suggested out of the Public Works Committee, and they recommended for approval. So there are no other changes from the last time it was presented.
Questions? Anyone?
So do we need to amend it to make that change? Because it looks,
It looks like the changes,
changes are already in here.
yeah.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions?
I just want to
Brian?
clarify, was the change in alignment with the state?
Yes.
Okay. Even the permeable versus pervious?
Yeah, and it's more of a industrial definition. That's how they're using the verbiage or the words
Okay.
in the industry, so to speak. So that's more aligning with that as well.
Okay.
Anyone else? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 1E, consideration of Resolution 25-2-2772, City of Monona Resolution to join the Wisconsin Local Government Climate Coalition, WLGCC, put forth by the Sustainability Committee. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve?
Second.
And I think Thor is here to talk about
Mr.
this.
Jepson is online to talk about this, yes.
Yep, thanks, Mayor.
You're
Yes, this was presented at the February 3rd meeting. There have been no changes since. Again, this was a recommendation from the Sustainability Committee to join the WLGCC as a strategy to progress towards our renewable energy and climate goals. The WLGCC is just an organization composed of local governments that work together to overcome barriers to decarbonization. Currently, there's 23 members, including some of our Dane County peers. There's no cost to join, and there's minimal staff requirements. There's just quarterly 1-hour meetings, essentially. Excuse me. And we just need to identify one staff or community member to act as our liaison. And currently in the resolution, that is listed as the assistant planner position. But that is something that could be discussed tonight if there's a more appropriate position. But the Sustainability Committee and staff believe that the assistant planner position is the appropriate liaison for that role. I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Questions, anyone? Isn't it definitely just 1 hour or quarterly 1-hour meetings? There's no more meetings than that?
Sorry, so it's monthly 1-hour meetings,
monthly.
and then there's optional bi-monthly work groups. So if we want, the city can, become part of one of the work groups around one of the organization's 5 strategic priorities, which are decarbonize buildings, decarbonize transportation, green the grid, people-centered and climate-smart land use policies, and promote resilience and natural solutions. So depending on the city's priorities and goals, we could join one of those work groups to collaborate and strategize and just learn from our peers around some of those strategies.
I'm just a little concerned about your time. Neil, did you have something to?
I think the primary benefit here, and Mr. Tepson can correct me if I'm wrong, is obviously it's just the information sharing, pretty much that can go on between partner communities in terms of just different projects and how they're implementing different issues. So I think then from my understanding is that actually they are pretty good about keeping it to that 1 hour. And it is obviously, even if we can't attend every single meeting, obviously we can't make the other things, but I think just certainly the benefit is of just participating in the conversation. I believe in just information sharing is the primary benefit of the organization. So
Yeah, I would concur. I think there's opportunity for time savings because it reduces that need to research at the beginning of planning process.
Anyone have any questions? Brian?
I'm not seeing exactly where it's listed that the assistant planner is
It's the
designated.
very last, on this next page, on page 122. It's the very last
Oh, okay.
item on the resolution.
My question is, can it be the city's assistant planner or designated staff? I mentioned that in the case of when we didn't have an assistant planner, or if the assistant planner position is vacant for a period of time.
Mhm.
Right.
That sometimes we've had individuals out of the Public Works Department that have been assigned to cover that group.
Yeah.
And I think that gives an opportunity for a little flexibility for the city.
I don't think that's
I would
that's a bad idea,
That's
yeah.
a great idea, yeah.
Maybe even the intern.
Yeah, yeah, that way.
Do you want to propose
I will. I'll propose that we'll amend the be it further resolved statement to include that the city assistant planner or designated staff.
is there a second?
Second.
Patrick? Any discussion about the amendment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now back to this, are there any further discussion about the original resolution as amended? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Thor.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Item 1F, consideration of ordinance 1-25-785, amending the zoning code with respect to the review authority for sign permits put forth by the Plan Commission. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Thank you.
Doug.
Good evening, everybody. This is the second read regarding the ordinance amendment to the sign code. This came through Plan Commission in early January of this year, and really sort of the focus of this would be switching the review authority for signs that already meet the standards of the ordinance. That it would go from Plan Commission review to city staff review instead. So there's certainly time savings to be had there. Sort of allowing for the commission to focus on some of the other projects, some of the other items that will be coming through Plan Commission, but also sort of streamlining that both for staff as well as for applicants as well. So we do have standards for the signs, that sort of maximum size, location, all those kind of things that are already written out in the ordinance. Nothing there is being proposed to change as part of this, simply just the review authority. The Plan Commission, when they did review it, one item that they suggested remain as part of the Plan Commission review is that of pylon signs, and those are it can be up to 30 feet. So Floor and Decor has a pylon sign, the Speedway gas station just off the Beltline as well. That kind of sign, the Plan Commission suggested, and as part of their recommendation to Council, they included that remain at Plan Commission review level. So the red line ordinance that you have in front of you that was reviewed by City Attorney Cole has that change made within it. And the only other thing I would call out, and the only other change that has been made since this came through last time at City Council, is there has been a cleanup of the off-premise signage language as well. It was deemed to be an administrative error, so it was just cleaning up that language, and I believe that was on page 11 of the red line ordinance. So it was for off-premise advertising signs, it now includes the word not. And I think that was always the intention, but that change has been made.
Changes the meaning.
Yeah. A little bit.
And was clarified, so that was included. I know, I think two alders had brought that to my attention as well, so thank you for that.
Questions, comments, anyone? Nancy?
I just want to make a comment again that this is, I think this is a smart move in the right direction as we've been trying to improve our efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Plan Commission and most especially at staff level, even a small sign permit or application chews up staff time to prep it, to put it in the packets, to be in front of the Plan Commission.
Yeah.
To write a report about it. And it's just, so applaud this move.
Mhm.
Applaud the Plan Commission for voting in favor.
Anyone else? Neil, did you have?
I think just real quick, obviously I will take some ownership and for the reason why I asked Director Plowman to bring this forward and thank the Plan Commission for its consideration. Obviously, its intent was exactly as Alder Moore has stated, is to improve kind of timing and efficiency for the staff level. I will certainly be, from my standpoint, the pylon sign is no different than any of the other types of signs. And therefore, because there is a defined standard on it, and from my opinion, I don't know if there's a significant reason to leave those out as a Plan Commission review if the standard is already defined, so similar to reviewing those. Would simply just raise that as a comment. Again, obviously, we'll certainly implement whatever council's desire is to do on that, and certainly understand the recommendation. But just wanted to certainly point out that certainly the original intent was certainly to improve efficiency and timing on that, as long as none of the other standards are actually changing for the signs. Would certainly just raise the point of if there's a specific concern why that one remained called out, it just would be just to raise that as a question, so.
Teresa?
Neil, am I understanding that the Plan Commission decided to make an exception for that kind of sign?
They wish to leave that under
leave
their
it.
own
Yep.
review authority, yes.
Mhm.
Do you know why? Did they say why?
I honestly can't remember why.
I think the focus there is just sort of, I think my interpretation, I don't think it was stated, but was just the scale of the signs, sort of the visibility of them and things. But as Administrator Steckschulte says, they are, we still have standards, we still have elements for that. One thing I would add, just kind of another point to consider as well, is comprehensive sign plans, which would be sort of a grouping of signs that would come through together at the same time for a new development, let's say such as Topgolf, that would still go to Plan Commission anyways. So most likely a pylon sign would be bundled with that. There's only so many sites that do have pylon signs that are eligible. That's included within the sign code as well. The instances of these coming through on their own are pretty minimal. So I can see it either way, but certainly appreciate the point being made.
So as it is, this change would take care of the vast majority of the signs that you are having to bring to Plan Commission
Correct.
now.
Yes.
But not,
Anyone else? Okay, if there aren't any more questions or comments, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Enjoy having more time, Doug. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Moving on to new business, item 2A, consideration of Resolution 25-2-2778, approving a general development plan, GDP, for approximately 1208 through 1212 East Broadway by North Point Development Corporation. This is put forth by the Plan Commission. And Sean O'Brien is here to talk about it tonight, and Doug as well. I guess,
Yes.
Doug, did you want to start out?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to just give an introduction, but we are certainly joined by the developer as well, and I'll turn it over to him in just a second. But this is the first read on a general development plan. So just as a refresher, this is sort of the master plan for a larger site. And so the general development plan request here is for East Broadway. This would be just to the west of the recently completed Broadway Lofts project. And so this is due south of Menards and then west of the new residential buildings. The plans here would be for age-restricted, 55 units of age-restricted multifamily housing, as well as a separate 2,400 square feet of commercial, freestanding commercial right along East Broadway as well. So this did come through Plan Commission twice. It came through for a pre-hearing in January and was unanimously recommended to Council for approval at the February meeting. Findings of fact and conditions of approval are included in the draft resolution as well. But I'm happy to turn it over to give a little more background to the request.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sean, would you like to address the council?
Yeah, certainly. Good evening, everybody. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here tonight. And then I wanted just to say thank you to all of the members and staff that attended our grand opening for the Broadway Lofts a couple of weeks ago. It was certainly nice to see you all there and to show that finished product. This is a new application that we are bringing forward. As Doug had stated, it's 2 buildings. It takes up 2 of the 3 remaining lots that the White Horse family subdivided on East Broadway, and just a little bit more in depth to the project. So like Doug said, it will be a project that's multifamily and a commercial. There'll be 2 separate buildings. Starting with the commercial piece, we know Broadway is very heavily traveled. We also know that originally, this area was deemed to be more of a commercial, type, area within the city. And so, we wanted to bring forth, a secondary project that kind of hit on bringing that commercial component to the neighborhood. Now, we don't have, kind of a tenant in mind at this point, but we do feel that, East Broadway is very heavily traveled, and we think that this could be a good space for possibly like a smaller sandwich shop or coffee shop or ice cream, something along those lines. We don't have the room for a drive-through, so it would be more of a a place for people to go and visit. And then behind that building would be a secondary apartment building, multifamily building that would be restricted to families that are that have at least one member of that family that's 55 or above, or basically an age-restricted property. This would be an affordable senior project, and so we would be targeting households that were between 30% and 80% of county median income. We will be submitting this project to WIDA for tax credits. Just a little bit of background there. WIDA has changed up their process a little bit from last year and the years prior. But in the last few years, developers would apply for tax credits in January, and WIDA would let you know if you were successful in obtaining those tax credits in approximately May. This year, WIDA took a new approach with their qualified allocation plan, and they did basically a pre-application, or what they're calling a project concept phase of the process. And in that, they received a handful of project concepts and then turned around and invited a subset of those project concepts back to submit a full application. So that occurred in December with the announcements coming out in early February, but this project was requested to actually turn in a full application to WIDA. And a little bit more about the project. Financially, the county is supporting this project with affordable housing development funds, approximately $1.8 million worth that they've already committed to the project. And for those who are able to see some of the sustainable features that we have in phase one, we'll certainly be adding those over here to this building as well, in terms of solar, EV chargers, extra insulation, Energy Star certifications, all of that nice stuff. And then a little bit more just about the project itself. This site that we're building the apartment building on is actually fairly tight with regard to setbacks with the environmental corridor and the wetlands that are on the west side of that property. So we're able to add a few amenities on basically the ground level with a gazebo and some walking paths, but we put all of the apartment amenities on the fourth floor, which was dual purpose. One, to really bring the amenities inside the building themselves because we're kind of short on buildable space. But two, also it allows us to really take advantage of some good views that are up there, on the second, third, and fourth floor that we've seen on phase one. So we're really excited about this project, and I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Questions, anyone? Nancy?
I don't have
Then
questions,
Rick?
I just have a comment, which is, I just wanted to report that while the phase one, if you will, of the housing down there did not receive unanimous approval by the Plan Commission, because at that time it was felt by some commission members that this was not a location for housing. This proposal received a unanimous vote of the Plan Commission. I think now that people have seen the building that's down there and the potential that's down there, they were genuinely enthusiastic about not only the proposal but the actual GDP.
Rick?
I have a few questions.
Okay.
If you don't get the WIDA funding, will this project still be able to go forward?
No, we will be hedging the project moving forward, based on that response in May. And in fact, we'll, as we're here at this meeting, we're only requesting a GDP. If we had received tax credits, you may be seeing us come through asking for both GDP and PIP. But we're pushing out the PIP approval process probably till after we hear back from WIDA on tax credits. If we're not successful this year, I could work with the Whitehorse family to see if there's an opportunity to resubmit next year or find another way to move the project forward. But it certainly would be less likely that the project would move forward if we don't get the WIDA tax credits.
I have another question.
Okay.
I've heard you term the Dane County money as soft. Is that right? Can you explain
Yep.
that? Did you hear me?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that if you'd like.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so when we're working through an affordable housing project, in any standard financial structure, you have debt and equity. And in an asset like housing, typically you would be able to carry a certain level of debt based on your rent and expenses and having funds left over to carry that debt service. And so as we go to WEDA and we ask for tax credits, they end up giving these tax credits that we sell that generates the equity for these tax credit projects. And then in return for that equity, we tell WEDA and make agreements with other parties as well that we are going to keep the rents at an affordable level to various income bands within the project. So when we look at and say, okay, well, how much debt can we carry, and then how much equity do we get from these tax credits that we sell from WEDA, we still find that there's a gap in our financial capital stack. And so then we have to go and find other sources of financing, whether it be grants or soft debt, that doesn't increase like the required debt service payments on a yearly basis. But in the case of soft debt, if there is enough cash flow after we've paid for our operating expenses and our primary debt service, then that debt service, that soft debt service, can get paid. If that makes sense.
So the Dane County money is soft, meaning it's secondary to the WEDA funding? Am I getting that right?
So in a cash flow waterfall type scenario, you would have your operating expenses get paid first, and then your primary debt service gets paid next, and then you would have, if you have any cash flow left over after that, then you can make debt service payments on your soft debt. If you don't have any cash flow available after you've made those debt service payments, then those loans are patient, and they're just patient capital that get paid either at a later date, or they get refinanced and paid off 30 years down the road.
Oh.
And yeah, and so for example, the county funds, they are actually they've changed their structure. So they used to be 2% simple interest. And you wouldn't have to basically pay that off until the loan balloon. Now it's 0%. It's a true balloon. And they set that timeline for however many years you guarantee that the land will be affordable. So on this project, we've committed to a 40-year affordability period with the county, and then therefore the $1.8 million, they'll lend that to us at 0%, and we won't have to make a payment until 40 years from now.
Wow, that's a good loan. I do have
yes,
one more.
Those are what we call gap fillers.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's the great money. I was curious if you had any clarity on two things. One, the 70-foot boundary from the wetland and your review by CARPC, and two, if you're going to be allowed parking on your private driveway.
So the first one, we don't have clarity yet. We've been working with CARPC, and based on our wetland delineation report that we sent over to them last week, they were going to look at our suggestion of basically creeping over the 75-foot line by a few feet to be able to allow us to pull the building an additional 5 feet off of the property. We do think that CARPC is going to be willing to work with us because of the total benefit that we're bringing to this site. There is right next to the wetlands and right next to the stream is basically a gravel driveway with compacted compacted gravel that's kind of acting as an impermeable surface. And so we're hopeful that we can work with them and come up with a solution to kind of I guess go back to one of the Plan Commission recommendations, which was to try to continue to move the building away from the road as much as possible. So I'm hoping that I would have some more information for this group by the next meeting that you're having in early March, and I can certainly circle back. And then in terms of the parking, one of the ways that we were working with Plan Commission was that both our commercial building and phase one would have joint parking agreements, which would allow for folks to use that parking. Currently, the city does allow parking on the private drive on one side. There's no parking on the east side. Signs are currently posted, but we do not have no parking signs on the west side of the private drive. I do not own the private drive. That is still currently owned by the Whitehorse family.
Okay. And I have one more question. There are 2 EV stations, charging stations. What would it take to be able to put in additional ones?
So we have a few of the EV charging stations in our other projects. Typically, when we do 2, we're doing 2 dual EV charging stations, so it'd be a total of 4 chargers. And then if we were to try to add more, we would have to make sure that our electrical service gear is large enough to add more EV charging stations. But then also having conduit in place. Typically, they're pretty easy to add in the garage in our basement that we're proposing. But having conduit in place would allow for us to add chargers at a future date as well.
Okay.
Anyone else have questions?
I didn't until just a moment ago. When there was talking about the parking on one side of the private drive, I assume that that's the driveway I'm seeing here that would go between the existing and the new building. And that will continue to be owned by the Whitehorse family. Is that what I heard? Okay.
Anyone else? Nancy?
Yeah, if I can just clarify that.
Yeah.
They would continue to own it in part because they still own a piece of property
Okay.
that is behind the development that's being proposed,
The green,
towards the belt line,
okay,
south of
okay,
the apartment building that's being proposed. There's still another
got it.
piece
So of course they need access
that
to
is
that
owned by
property.
Whitehorse Partners, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone
I would
else?
just say with the private drive, though, we have, I guess I'd say responsibility to make sure that drive is maintained, repaired, and cleared of snow, and then we take it upon our project first phase to then bill back the other lots. And so when we set this up, there's a joint driveway agreement that allows for all of those lots to have access to the private drive, and then how do we handle situations that come up in the future, especially with like snow clearing and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we felt we were going to be on site, and it'd be the most important thing to make sure that road was plowed for our tenants. So we took ownership of making sure that got done.
Anyone else? And this will come back on the 3rd?
Yes.
Well, if there are no other questions, I guess
Thank you.
prepare them for the next time if you have any.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank
Okay.
you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
You too. Thanks, Doug. Moving on to reports of committees, commissions, et cetera. Alder Bernstein.
No report.
Alder Rademacher.
No report.
Alder Wood.
No report.
Jeez.
Alder Moore.
Sorry to rain on everybody's parade. I just have a couple of things. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Brad, especially related to the LED lights that we just passed.
Yeah.
You guys probably you may not recall, but we started talking about LED lights
A long
Yeah.
time ago.
6 years ago, maybe?
Very long time ago. Yeah.
And so it's just the fact that we finally managed to get it done, because it in fact was a significant driver in terms of our carbon footprint.
Yep.
As per a report that we did, the city did, like I said, 6 years ago. So the fact that we're finally getting to it, I'm only sorry that we're not able to get to it on Monona Drive as well, because at the time that we we built Monona Drive, we decided on design over efficiency, and so all the lights on, or the majority of the lights on Monona Drive, that are the fancy ones, can't be replaced with LED without all new fixtures. So, second, there is a very important public information meeting on bus transit tomorrow night from 6:30 to 7:30 here in the Forum Room, the library in the Forum Room, and that is, we will have 3 Metro representatives there, slide deck in hand, to go over everything, all the details of how the routes work, how the fare system works, what the schedules are, what they can expect both for regular transit as well as paratransit. 2 of those individuals that will be here from Metro are bilingual Spanish speakers, so we hope people will come, learn, listen, and take Metro. The third thing I wanted to point out was not so much a committee report, but just an observation. So there's an article today from Somerville, Massachusetts, small community in Massachusetts outside of Boston, for those who are unfamiliar with it, that businesses are closing because 75% of the businesses in Somerville are immigrant-owned. And people are so afraid that nobody's coming out to go to the businesses, and the businesses themselves are afraid. And I may think that this doesn't apply to us, but I just want to tell you that it does apply to us, because I would, first of all, as we all know, and I've often said, Monona is very fortunate to have a lot of fantastic ethnic establishments in town on Monona Drive. But well beyond that, while I don't have an exact number, I'm going to say that over 50% of the new applicants that we've seen at the Plan Commission since I've been chair, comfortably over 50%, have been people who are leasing or owning buildings that are of color. So I just, I just wanted to point that out, because I think it is something, the fact that they're going so far as to have to close their business because of a lack of business, and also because of the fear, is something that I think we may well experience in this area as well. I just think it's rather horrifying.
Thank you, Alder Moore.
Yeah.
Alder Moore, did you also want to say something about an event at San Damiano?
Oh, sorry. This on Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. We are having an event called Fire and Wonder. It's a winter gathering at San Damiano that will include. It's for Friday is a day off from school for the kids. Another one of the days off of school. It's part of the reason why we scheduled it that day, and it will include a bonfire. The paths through the woods at San Damiano will be lit up with tea lights for people to be able to wander through the woods down to the ice. There'll be some fire pits on the ice for people to be able to gather around, in addition to the bonfire. Scavenger hunt, and snowshoeing, snowshoes. And last but definitely not least, Janice Rice, who's a member of the Ho-Chunk Nation and librarian emeriti at UW-Madison, whose life's work has been focusing on the culture and history and language, passing all of that down of the Ho-Chunk Nation. We'll be doing storytelling in the house. 3 different sessions of storytelling in the house. So we look forward to seeing you, and there'll be hot chocolate inside. So, we welcome all. And it's supposed to be a fairly warm day,
Meeting like 20?
like 20s.
Relatively
In the 20s.
Yeah.
In the 20s. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Alder Holmquist.
No report.
Alder Pula.
No report.
Wow. Doug, did you have any report?
Nothing else to add.
No.
Thank
Chief?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, I'm gonna get through my scribble scrabble here. Some very important topics. Well, since, oh, Kim's not here anymore. Well, happy Crossing Guard Appreciation Day. It is Crossing Guard Appreciation Week, and I've already recognized, I called Kim or texted him, and we've been messaging, so he's eager to help write some tickets for us as well, but he's been doing a great job, as you know, with doing some education and just overall supporting our mission to help keep our roads safe and to, you know, it's hard for, I'll say, the kids who park in the neighborhood adjacent to Monona Grove to be naughty when they know a person who they interact with daily. And so we've seen a lot of voluntary compliance, which is good. For those that need a little extra motivation, Kim will be happy to issue a citation. So thank you for that. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to wonderful DPW crew, Monona Fire, and I see Chief McMullen. Well, he's
Chief's
on
off
too.
too. Yep.
Okay. Chief McMullen and his crew, Parks and Rec. We had a very, very, very successful polar plunge event. Officer Hoffman, Jocko were there. Yours truly was the MC, or the backup MC, not really the MC. They had a DJ, thank goodness. But it was I was so proud of the amount of folks that showed up and used the shuttle system that was organized this year. And you talk about a kaleidoscope of folks in terms of DEI and what I think this community has indicated was a priority, one of the many priorities. These are the types of things that we're talking about and bringing to Monona. We stole this event from the city of Madison, happily. So I would encourage all of you.
Is this what used to be at Olbrook?
Yeah,
Oh.
this is what used to be at Olbrook. It's now at our Lattice Park. And they shuttle from Ahuska, they shuttled from somewhere on campus or near campus. And my understanding is that they filled some hotels with rooms with this too. We had folks from all over the area. This was the regional polar plunge, not just Madison. We're going to work on them retitling it because right now it's Madison Polar Plunge, so we're going to work on that. Capital area sounds great, hosted by Monona. But it was obviously for our wonderful neighbors, friends, family members with intellectual disabilities and supporting them and their lives and they're all athletes. And so this helps raise money to help support those wonderful folks. So thank you all. And I managed to thaw within 5 minutes after standing out there all day. So I was at the Wisconsin Chiefs Conference last week at the Kalahari. The reason I bring that up, 2 things. Number one, your chief was assigned, I think is the proper term, as the legislative co-chair for the state,
Nice.
representing all of the chiefs in Wisconsin. Some of that's out of, I think, just for the sheer fact that I'm based here in Dane County. How convenient is that? With view of the Capitol building? But I think, you know, I was appointed by the president, and I think he and now it's the incoming president who's taken over from Altoona, the chief of police there, she's wonderful. We've had a chance to talk, and we really think that there's some issues that the association can do a better job of advocating. And as you know, I've talked about emergency detentions and my passion about treating people who are in crisis better than what we're doing now. And our hands are kind of forced because we have to convey these persons in a squad car to Winnebago Mental Health. That's something that is darn near inhumane. We're getting fairly close to checking that box, unfortunately. And it's a great strain on the persons in crisis and a great strain on your officers who have to make that conveyance with them as well. So that is something that has been ranked by the association as one of the #1 legislative priorities for the chiefs in the state of Wisconsin, and something that I'm going to help advocate for. So I thought that was kind of cool.
That would be
So,
great.
That is.
And how is the water slide?
I'm sorry? What did I miss?
And how is the water slide?
Oh, no.
The color.
Your chief commuted every day. Speaking of commuting, hopefully next year if I do that, it'll be more fuel efficient because GM and Ewald were there. And so I had a chance to talk to the manufacturer, and they verified that your vehicle, your all-electric vehicle, the VIN was generated, which means the car is being built.
Excellent.
I was told March, it's being assembled in Mexico. So hopefully
Sweet.
things as they are.
Hopefully those tariffs don't.
Hopefully we'll see this
boy.
vehicle, but according to GM, the rep I talked to, they're very confident that we're going to see this vehicle April or March, unless it's held up at customs.
Great.
Okay, so that's good. Your F-150, which was fully outfitted, was on display at the Chiefs Conference. The outfitter who we went with this year, they've outfitted 2 of your squad cars. They're called Taft Outfitting. They're out of Oshkosh. We don't take the car up to Oshkosh. They literally pick it up. They pick it up, drop it off. If we've had issues with it, they come here, they repair it, they fix it, they plug in. They've been fabulous so far to work with, and I hope that that trend continues. We are their first customer in Dane County. They typically service sort of the Fox Valley area. The reason there's been a shift is because we typically work with General Communications right here in Fitchburg. They're the only game in town. So imagine every police department, every ambulance service, every whomever needs to get their vehicle outfitted. There's a waiting line that's darn near till next year.
Yeah.
So we needed to explore our options, and actually I think it was you, Andrew, that had a canine right connection that passed along a card. So they were so proud of their work and your F-150 that they displayed that at their booth at the Wisconsin Chiefs Conference. And so we've already been getting a lot of inquiries about how it's working out. And I was like, I don't know, we haven't utilized it too much yet. But our school resource officer is taking it up to the Wisconsin, the threat conference that's happening also at the Kalahari, I believe, this week. So that's the update on that. And then lastly, 2 more things. I want to mention about our new traffic initiatives that are happening this year. We've titled them Designated Enforcement Zones, DEZs. All of your officers are familiar with what DEZs are, and they're designated geographical areas within the city. It's usually like a square that I overlay over the city map, and I said, okay, officers, we need you to make sure that you look to address traffic issues in this area. And we talk about what some of the concerns are, what some of the complaints are, what some of the behaviors that we're seeing. The first one we conducted was geographic area a little bit south of the city, Frostwoods to Broadway, and everything between Monona Drive and Bridge. So all the residential streets, the intersections, Bridge Road in particular, we address. And it was during one of those designated enforcement times in which an officer was conducting enforcement, like his chief told him to do in those areas, where he observed a vehicle and he ended up getting in a pursuit. This was the pursuit that went, unfortunately, I say unfortunately because I'd rather people stop, but unfortunately to Marshall's department store. There was a gun, the convicted felon, and he had went there because he has an association with the store of somebody who works there, right? So that's how it ended up there. I bring that up to say that our officers are in these zones, they're addressing dangerous behaviors and driving behaviors, but we're also seeing that some of the same actors and bad actors, I will say, that are committing these crimes around us. We've had 2 significant events happening in our area, just east of us, just south of us, including a homicide of an 18-year-old, a shooting of a 16-year-old, and another shooting that just happened 2 days ago. Several of these have connections, and I'll try to censor myself a little bit and say filter. and say that our officers are keenly aware of what's happening around us. They talk to Madison officers talk to us. They're aware of keep an eye out for this and look for that as it relates to shootings and violent crime, et cetera. So I may not be able to give you 100% in a press release. Know that it's because I don't want to ruin another agency's investigation. But I did have some questions about a couple of our pursuits. This one in particular as to why you stopped them or what was the reason, et cetera. I will say that in the case I'm describing, in which the gentleman was arrested, charged by the DA himself is handling this case. So, and I know some of that is shared workload, right? But a lot of that speaks to the severity of the case and how well your agency puts a case together. That DA Ozan is taking a case himself. So we're continuing to work these DEZs every 2 weeks. We move them throughout the city. Right now, it's north of the city, along Atwood, turning into Monona Drive, right by the East Side Club and down. And soon here, Lieutenant Weigel will be putting out via social media sort of a report or update as to our progress and the areas that we focused on and what types of behavior that we've seen and what types of enforcement we conducted, so that in full transparency, you know what we're doing out there. So, but all of this is available to you now live via our traffic dashboard, where you can see some of the work that we're doing. It's wonderful now that there have been so many Google entries for traffic dashboard Monona. That's all you have to do. Hit enter and it'll bring you right to it. So it's probably me 99% of the time. But I'm hoping that members of the public also are seeing that and utilizing that. And then I just wanted to give a thank you to all the community support we've received, the support from all of you we've received. It's been quite frankly, pretty overwhelming, the level of support that we're receiving from members of this community that say, thank you for doing what you do. We know it's tough work, and we appreciate the work that you're doing out there. We know you're a little bit different than our big brother or big sister that surrounds us, and that's okay. But we appreciate the fact that you take measured risks and that you don't take unnecessary risks and that you keep this community safe. So thank you to the community, and thank you for all of you for your continued support.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for the chief while he's here? Nancy, did you have
No, I
something?
don't have questions. Thank you.
Thanks, chief.
Thank you.
Did you have?
Well, I would just, actually, he brought up two things that made me realize there was a couple of things that I didn't say, one of which was, because we do like stealing things from Madison, as the chief just said about the Polar Plunge. One of the things that I didn't mention from the Plan Commission meeting was that we are stealing for Lakes Vet from Madison, and they are moving to the corner of Monona Drive and Winnequa.
Across the street makes it Monona.
Right next to the Restore where Forward Pharmacy and Confectionique were.
Yeah.
And so we're happy to have them in Monona. And the second thing is I just wanted, again, the chief's mention made me, I just wanted to give a shout out to Public Works and Parks and Rec in particular for this weekend. It was a wall buster in terms of the storms and the wind yesterday, especially after the storms. It was a lot of work. So, and I just am always super impressed with how our roads are in comparison to any of the surrounding areas. And just as a case in point of going the extra mile, yesterday afternoon I received a report that there was a car that was stuck up in San Damiano, that had gotten stuck at San Damiano. And the question was, like, they got stuck in in the snow. So the question was there anybody on? Well, I reached out to Jake, and he said, well, nobody's on. This was yesterday afternoon. He said, nobody's on. To be honest, they're all spent because they had been going around cleaning all weekend. But I'm on.
Oh, so he went down there?
Huh?
So he went over there?
So he went down to city, he was on because so many of our parks had, with the wind, had snow drifts where they had already plowed or sidewalks where they had already cleared and they were a mess again. And so Jake was out there. When I texted him, he said, "But I'm clearing some sidewalks right now. I'll roll up there and see what it's like." And he, used his equipment to basically move what was a gigantic drift, which is how this car got stuck. And then I was able to relay who I found out about it from, and eventually the owner of the car came back with a shovel and get out.
Wow.
But it was just because the winds, I know the drifts in my house were horrible too, so. Anyway, it was a long weekend, and we haven't had a lot of snow last
Right.
couple of years.
Right.
We haven't had to
Right.
use a lot of salt the last couple of years.
Right.
Well, and we had really icy roads too,
Yeah.
like a week
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah.
that were a challenge to deal
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
too, so. Officer Hoffman, did you have anything to talk about?
Absolutely not.
Leah, did you have anything?
Just that tomorrow's the primary election.
Yeah.
Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Thank you. Neil?
That was gonna be mine, so.
Ah.
no other report.
Okay, well, we do have one appointment, Ryan Kelly, the Board of Review Chair, effectively immediately through April 13th, 2025. This is a position that's reappointed annually, but Bob Larson was our Chair of the Board of Review for years, and he talked to me almost a year ago saying this last May was going to be his last Board of Review meeting, and Ryan has been on the board for several years, and I did have him submit a new application just so you could see. He's got some really good background for it and was willing to do it. So anyway, we are happy that he accepted the appointment. So is there a motion to approve the appointment of Ryan Kelly to the Board of Review Chair?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?